Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host, Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting historic landmarks and uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be learning about the burial grounds of Northampton throughout its history. So, inform us on the Protestant church cemeteries.
There's quite a few of those. In fact, there's a lot of cemeteries, both in Northampton nowadays and also outside, because it has other communities splinter off of it, since it was a pioneer community in the colonial era. But you have the Bridge Street Cemetery, which is the oldest one of any cemetery never moved. It was probably from about 1662, and to get into it, you have to go to the back. The front gate is locked now. It has beautiful mausoleums in it. I think it has about 8 table gravestones within it, and there's a lot around this area. The Pomeroy neighborhood is around the area, and they have historical plaques around the perimeter telling you about this cemetery. Within this cemetery, there's a cemetery that was moved from the courtyard area of Northampton. That one dated to the 1630s, and they moved it into this one. And thus, there's some extremely old burials, older than the ones that are in there. So in 1680, they moved the cemetery into this one. But this is not the only Protestant cemetery. Of course, there's many others, and that includes the Park Street Cemetery, which is up in Florence, very easy to find. It's off the center of Florence. And here it's easy to find African Americans because they worked in the silk mills of Florence during the 1800s. There's also Spring Grove Cemetery, which is a garden-style cemetery with a fountain that works during the summer. And there you have nice curving paths. And there, this cemetery is more towards the northern part of Northampton itself. There's a lot of really cool stones within here. Okay, and then you have the West Farm Cemetery, which is a neighborhood cemetery. It was probably built sometime in the early 1800s when neighborhoods cemeteries were in fashion. Okay, and there's many others. So we'll get to those next.
And educate us on the Catholic cemeteries.
Well, the St. Mary's Cemetery that's there now is not the original location. That St. Mary's Cemetery used to be on King Street, behind the St. Mary's Church, which also is not at its original location. St. Mary's movestones are towards the back center, right off the entrance road. And most people find it hard to believe that St. Mary's both has been moved with time. There's also a St. Mary's Assumption Cemetery up in Florence, and that one was mostly associated with the St. Mary's Assumption Church of Williamsburg, which is the next town over. All right, so it makes a difference between those two St. Mary's. The latter is very modern, where the earlier St. Mary's had burials in its old churchyard cemetery in 1845. Also, there is the Holy Trinity Polish National Church Cemetery, and that's associated with St. Valentine's Church, which is in Northampton, but its cemetery is up in Hatfield itself. And there's the Our Lady of the Annunciation Churchyard, a single-person churchyard cemetery in Florence, and it's the burial ground for the founder of that church. The church was made in 1879, ready in 1880, and Patrick Kellery, its founder, when he died, they buried him alongside the church in 1886. All right, so there's quite a few Catholics, but there's a lot of special ones too.
And stick around, and we will be right back after this quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, presented by Robert Camus. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit holyokecanaltour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. So, getting back to our episode on the burial grounds in Northampton throughout its history, detail the Jewish cemeteries.
There are two of them in Northampton. There's the Congregation B'nai Israel Cemetery, which is made in 1906. There was a Jewish group up in Northampton, and all other synagogues were in Holyoke, West Springfield. So this one was the only one that served up in Hampshire County. It's very unique, of course, cool wall and gates around it. But right along its side is another cemetery called the Hebrew Society Cemetery. This is also from the early 1900s. It has one burial child from 1901. It might predate 99 burial. So this is a very old cemetery. The other one might have broken off of it and they transacted a land deed. So these are really cool to look at. This one's more family oriented, family divided than the one next to it. Now, there's a lot of other burial sites here. There are some Native American burial sites, one especially on Hospital Hill. But there's a really different and very unique burial ground. The Northampton State Hospital burial grounds is in back to the hospital area, a former area. And it used to have a bench with it, but they broke that. But it still has some burials visible, especially by numbers. There's probably 100 people buried there. But even this is max time, only about 10 people had stones, and those are worn out and almost invisible at this point. So there's also St. Peter and Paul Russian Orthodox Cemetery on Mountain Street, and that one's a very recent build. But there's some unique categories, and that's coming up next.
And reveal other burial sites associated with Northampton.
Well, Northampton used to be more territory. What is East Hampton, Southampton, and West Hampton all used to belong to Northampton. And when they broke off, they already had cemeteries. So those used to be Northampton-based cemeteries. Also, the Smiths Ferry neighborhood of Holyoke is on land that used to be part of Northampton. And that had a cemetery too. So I'll tell you the cemeteries that are in other communities that belong at one time to Northampton. East Hampton broke off 1809, and at that point they already had the first burial place, which is the Pioneer Burial Place, which is lost. They had the old Center Cemetery, which was moved into the Main Street Cemetery, and then the Main Street Cemetery itself, and then the East Street Cemetery, founded in 1775. In West Hampton, they had two previous cemeteries that are now gone, the Kingsley Cemetery and Edwards Cemetery, north and south of the West Hampton Center Cemetery. That cemetery, West Hampton Center, was made in 1790 after it became a town, but it already had two neighborhood cemeteries. Holyoke had, it broke off from Northampton in 1909, had at least one neighborhood only, Smiths Ferry. And the Smiths Ferry Cemetery is part of Northampton's history too. Now, lastly, is Southampton broke off in 1775, and one of their cemeteries, the Southampton Center Cemetery, was much older than that. It's from about 1738, so it used to be a part of Northampton too. So Northampton might have had 20 cemeteries associated with it.
And thank you for joining us on our podcast of the cemeteries throughout Northampton's history, and joining us on our journey to the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in to our next episode of Canal Days. Until next time.